In this tutorial, we'll build a responsive HTML email template. So as you can see here in my Gmail account, going from the bottom to the top, at the bottom we have some social media icons along with a link to a fictitious website with the Kasha Decor link that I made up, as well as subscriber preferences. We have a promotional button, a 3-column responsive section, as well as a header and banner section. So this will be built with tables, and we're going to have collapsing table columns, which will go from 3 columns to 2, then to the single column layout. So Gmail will only take it down to 2 columns, but if we use developer tools, we're able to span it down from the full 600 pixel width, which is the standard width for email templates, down to the single column layout. And here's how it appears on my iPhone with dark mode using the Gmail app. So you can see how it looks with the single column layout on mobile. So in order to get started with the tutorial, in the description of this video, I've included a link to these starter files with index.html I'll be working out of in Visual Studio Code, as well as all of the images used for the email template provided in the image folder. Also, there's a preview for my HTML email course in the form of an HTML file, as well as the PDF, so you can get a preview of my full HTML email mastery course, as well as check out some of the reviews. So I'd encourage you to check out the sales page so you can see the course curriculum. The design that we'll be building in this video is based off of the design included as a test project for the course. And while it may look similar, the level of complexity inside of the course is much more in depth than what we're going to go into in the YouTube video. But in this video, I'm going to try to make the email template render in as many email clients as possible with the least amount of code. So here we'll see many of the email clients that we can test for. It'll work in. We're not going to be able to have it render correctly in Windows Outlook though. Just to put it into perspective, inside of my HTML email mastery course, we spent an hour and a half just on the boilerplates, setting us up so it renders properly in all email clients, while in this video we don't spend any time on the boilerplate. We just have it in a few lines of code. But this is going to display in a lot of testable email clients within this 40-minute video versus the 16-hour HTML email mastery course. So with that introduction, let's take a look at the starter files with the index.html file that I have open here in Visual Studio Code. So if you're not familiar with Visual Studio Code as your text editor, and you can use another text editor by the way, just check out my channel for a lesson on Visual Studio Code. And I'm also going to be using the live server extension so we can see what we're doing live inside of Google Chrome, though it's not necessary to participate in the tutorial. So once you have index.html open, you'll be able to see this boilerplate that I've included for us, which is the standard HTML5 boilerplate, and HTML5 can be used for email clients. We don't have to use older versions of HTML. I've also included all of the classes and elements that we'll be styling, and you can see the images here inside of the image folder that we'll be adding as well. So I'm going to close Explorer on the left, and let's take a closer look at what's included in the HTML along with the CSS I've added. So I'll hit Go Live to open up the live version in Google Chrome. And we can type something in to make sure that we are connected. So I'll just add a heading 1 and write hello. And if it doesn't show up right away, just refresh your browser. But there we have it centered already for us. As I mentioned, we're going to be building with tables, which is required for email templates. We can't use other forms of CSS or CSS frameworks. So inside of this table, I'm going to start off with a table row and table data tag just to re-add that heading text so we can see the email template start to form with the CSS selectors I've included, which we're going to fill out with the wrapper and main classes. So from the top though, we have the start of our HTML document, the HTML tag itself, which spans the whole document, and the standard HTML5 boilerplate. So we just have the character set, Internet Explorer Edge compatibility, viewport width, device width for mobile, the title, which isn't really necessary in email. Then we have our internal style sheet. I've also included some resets with body margin 0, table boarding spacing 0, padding 0 to table data tags, and border 0 to images. So these are some standard resets to include in HTML email elements. Then I also have a Google font included for us, which is the Poppins Google font from fonts.google.com. So that's going to give us this text styling that we're seeing here, as well as throughout the rest of the template. So let's see that font style take form, or font family take form, I should say, inside of our browser with the hello text by styling the first element which I've included. Let's take a look at that real quickly though. So moving down to the body of the document, we have the center tag, which is an HTML4 tag, but we can still use it in email because it's still valid and it'll make it easy for us to center our email template. And we also have the class wrapper added to it so we can style it in our internal style sheet. So this is going to span our entire document, or at least the body section, and that's going to be the background color that we saw around the email template, while the table inside of the center wrapper is going to be the actual email template at a 600 pixel width. So we'll get to that in just a few moments. Let's add our styling for the wrapper really quickly though, which has already started for us over here as we saw. So I'm going to give it a width of 100%. So it takes up the full window and the body tag. And in order to make it so the table is contained inside of this, we're going to add table layout fixed. That way the table doesn't expand outside of our wrapper on mobile devices. Then let's add a background color to surround our email template, which is going to be an off-white yellow shade with DAD4CB as the hex value. And I like to add some space underneath the email template, so I'll add padding bottom 60 pixels. So now if we take a look at what we've been working on, we should see that background color along with the heading 1 text, and we can see the space underneath it as well. So now let's move on to the main table class. So as we saw, that's going to be inside of the table with the main class and width 100%. So this is going to contain our actual email template, as I mentioned, at the width of 600 pixels. We'll need to make sure that it's 100% of the width underneath 600 pixels first though. So we're going to start off with width 100%. Then we're going to give it a max width of 600 pixels. So it'll be contained within 600 pixels, but 100% underneath that, so it's mobile friendly. And let's give this its off-white background shade with FCF9F5 as the hex value. So FCF9F5, and now we can start to see the layout of the template matching the shade of the finished version with the 3-column section. We can also declare the font family we'll use inside of our table. So let's add font family Poppins in a single quote, which is the Google font I mentioned previously. Then we'll have some fallback fonts as well. So we could just do serif, but I'll do Arial Helvetica sans serif as the full fallback. Then instead of having black text throughout, let's change the color of our text to a dark brown shade with 44413D as the hex value. It's a subtle change, but if I take this away, you should see the difference between that dark brown and black. We'll also give it some box shadow to make the template pop out on the page. As we saw with the finished version, we have the slight shadow on either side as well as the bottom. So we're going to give it a value of 0 horizontal, 0 vertical, 25 pixels spread, and we'll add red, green, blue alpha so we can make it transparent. So we'll have it all black with 3 zeros. Then for alpha, we can go from 0 all the way up to 1. So if we have it at 1, it's going to be all black, but at 0.15, it's nice and subtle. So you can change this around to the value that you want. I like to have it just pretty subtle so it's not that apparent. Then lastly, for the main class, all of the text throughout our template is going to be centered. So we can add text align center to this to support the centering of the text in email clients that respond to the internal style sheet. So now with our email template starting to take form, we can begin to add our content throughout the template, each section of which is going to be inside of a starting table row. So that includes the header at the top as well as the banner image. So let's move down to that header or logo as it says with the comment. And I'm going to remove the heading 1, but we can keep the table row and table data tags and replace heading 1 with a link or anchor tag with the A. And inside of our link will be the image with the img tag, and we'll have our attributes added here with the brackets using the emmet feature here in Visual Studio Code with the attributes source, alt, width, and style. Then we can hit enter. But before filling these out, I'm going to add the style attribute to the surrounding table data tag. And I'll come back to that in just a moment, but this is going to be the exact same for the banner image. So I'm going to copy this and just paste it down beneath, then correct the indentation. So now let's start to fill out the attributes for the logo. So you can add a website address here to link to if you want to put https yourwebsite.com. But for the links in this template, I'm just going to leave them blank with the hashtag. Then for the source of the image, we'll go into the image folder, and it's going to be Kasha Decor header.jpg. For the alternative text, it's best practice to add that, so we can just type in Kasha Decor, and that's going to show up if the image link fails to work or the image doesn't show up. So let's correct the width and then we can take a look at that. So we'll add width 600 for 600 pixels. And we're going to use the same technique that we used with the template width itself to make it so it's responsive, but it's sort of the opposite. So we're going to give it a max width of 100% while the width is 600 pixels. So it's going to be contained inside of that 600 pixel template. With the alternative text, if I were to mess up the link for the image, we'll see that Kasha Decor text display instead of the logo. So let's fill out the same for the banner image, and we'll come back to the style attribute in the table data tag. So this is going to be Kasha Decor banner.png. So I meant to make that JPEG, but I must have forgotten to change that so it's a smaller image file. And we'll do the same with the max width and 600 pixels. Then you can also fill out the alternative text if you wish. So now for the style attributes added to our table data tags, you may see that slither of space underneath the logo image and the banner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add line height 0 here, which is going to remove the space that's added when we have a link inside of a table data tag. So just add line height 0, and that's going to make it so our images can be pushed right up next to one another. And it looks like I forgot the percentage sign up here, so make sure you add that to be certain that both the logo and the banner image are responsive. Now let's start laying out the HTML for the 3-column section, which is where most of the time on the tutorial will be spent. And we'll get some experience layering tables in order to lay out the responsive collapsing email columns. So let's start a new table row table data tag, and we'll also have a table inside of this. So we're going to give this a width with the width attribute of 100%. Then I'm going to add some space here, and we'll start a new layer of table row and table data tags. So let's add tr_td. And we're going to give this a class that we'll call 3-columns. So this is basically going to be the wrapper around our 3-column section where we can add padding to the top or bottom. So td.3-columns, hit enter, and now we'll have that class added. The next element will be a table, and we're going to give this table a class as well, which is going to represent the column. So this is going to be the start of one of the 3 columns. So we'll have a new table for each one. So we'll say table.column to give it that class. So once we add styling to the column class, this is going to be what actually collapses. So as I mentioned, each table with a column class is going to represent one of the collapsing columns. And we'll continue with a new set of table row and table data tags. So this table data tag is going to represent the padding that we see between the different sections. So we'll simply call this class padding. So td.padding. Then after this, I'm going to create some more space between the table data tags to add a new table. And this will be the last of our table elements, which is going to be for our content inside of the column. So we'll say table.content. Then inside of this table, we're going to have a new table row for each content block. So table row, table data tag, then our actual content. So each table row will be the heading, the image, then the paragraph text, similar to how a table row represented the header image and the banner image. So let's start off our content with the heading 3, where it says Jolie Maison, which means pretty house in French. So once we have that added, if we go back to what we've been working on and we make sure Visual Studio Code's live server is connected, we have that heading appearing. So let's add the image that appears underneath of it now inside of a new set of table row and table data tags. First though, I'm going to add some padding here with padding 5 pixels top, 0 left right, and 10 pixels bottom to separate it from the image sum. The top padding for this first column won't really make a difference, but we'll apply it to the rest of the columns. So let's start a new table row for the image that appears underneath, so tr and td. Then we'll wrap our image with a link similar to what we did with the header and banner images. So we'll use the anchor tag, then inside of that an image. Then the source of it will be the kasha3col1.jpg image. And we'll also need to include the width attribute. So you can leave the alternative text blank or fill it out. So we'll add width, and this is going to be 170 pixels. So each column will be 200 pixels at their full width. So that means we're going to have 15 pixels of padding on either side. So 170 plus 30 equals 200. Then to conclude this column, let's add our last row with TD as well to have our paragraph text. So I'm going to copy the paragraph text from here. You could type in ipsum or lorem for dummy text. So just type in lorem, then hit enter for the ipsum lorem text. So I'll just paste that in, and I'm going to add some padding around this as well. So right now it's taking up the full width until we style it, but I'm going to add padding of 3 pixels top, 0 left right, and 10 pixels bottom, which will add some separation between this column and the next. So with the HTML complete for our first column, what we can do is simply copy the first column and paste it twice for the rest, then change the content. Before doing that though, to make it easier to navigate the table layers, let's add some HTML comments saying that this is the end of that class, starting with the end of the content class. Then this table is going to be the end of the column class. So end column 1. And I missed the padding one, so that's going to be this table data tag, end padding. Then we have the actual ending of the 3 columns class. So that's not part of our column, so we won't be pasting that in. We just need one of these, so I'll just call it a wrapper as a reminder that that's containing the columns. I'll also mention that there's some debate as to whether or not HTML comments affect emails from being delivered, but it's generally best practice not to include columns. For tutorials though, I include them for the explanations. Now it should be easy to recognize the start and end of each one of our columns, so we're ready to copy and paste this first column in twice to represent the other 2 columns. So Visual Studio Code, for whatever reason, doesn't make it easy on us to scroll and copy HTML, but just make sure that you're including that full column, then paste it in twice. So you can just add a comment that this was the first, this is the second, and then we have the third. So with that, it should be pretty easy to navigate all of this layered HTML with the tables. So let's go about changing the content over to the completed version seen on the left. So let's go to the second column, and I'll change the heading text to say Armoire Deluxe or Luxury Armoire. Then we can change the image to col-2, as well as the paragraph text. So I'll just copy this and paste it in. Then we have the third column where it says Serviette de bain or bath towel. So I'll change that text by pasting it in, as well as the paragraph text, and paste it in. So now with all of our content filled out for our 3 columns, we're ready to start our styling with the classes that we added. So the first one that we're going to style will be the 3 columns class. Then we'll go right down the order of these various classes with our table and TD elements, as well as the content inside of it with the heading and the button. So I've already filled them out here. We don't have to reference the 3 columns before column padding and content, but if we were using other columns like a 2- columns class, we would want to do that. So let's add some padding around our 3 columns with padding of 50 pixels on top to add some spacing up here and 25 pixels underneath. So we'll add 50 pixels top, 0 left right, and 25 pixels bottom. So now we can move on to styling the individual columns with the column class. So for this, we're going to give it a width of 200 pixels, as I mentioned, because that goes into 600 pixels 3 times. I'm going to add width 100% here, though. So even though we're not going to have screen widths at the width of 200 pixels or less, I like to add width 100% just to keep with the responsive idea, just like we did with the banner image and the header. Then we'll give it its max width of 200 pixels instead of 600 pixels. So next, to get them displaying next to one another, now that they're contained within 200 pixels, we'll add display inline block. So with display inline block, we'll have them next to one another, but they won't be aligned. So we'll use vertical align top to have them aligned at the top. And in order to get them all lined up next to one another, we'll need to add font size 0. And this will make it so our table data tags don't take up extra space, so we can have all of our tables representing the columns inside of that table data tag fill up the full 600 pixels. And we can just add a font size to the content class to get our text back with font size 16 pixels. And I'll also change the line height to make the text more spaced out with line height 22 pixels. Then we have our padding class. So as I mentioned, we're going to have padding of 15 pixels left right because we have that image at 170 pixels. So that's going to space it out evenly to have the image centered without the text overlapping on the sides of the image. So we'll add padding 0 top bottom and 15 pixels left right. So now we have everything centered with the spacing corrected. So let's correct the heading 3 styling now because we have it in bold when we want it to look like this with the regular font weight and without that additional spacing underneath the heading. So let's change the font size first to 19 pixels, and that may be about the same, but you can adjust that if you wish. Then the font weight to 400, which is the regular font weight, and headings have margin displaying underneath them as well as on top. So if we add margin 0, we have full control around the spacing of the heading 3, including removing all of it with 0. So now let's move on to the coupon section where it says use this promo code. Then we have the Oats of Maine 20 button. So we'll start off with a new table row table data tag with the style attribute. And I'm going to give this the background color that we're seeing, which is the hex value F4EDE3. Then inside of this, we're going to have a table before we get to our content rows, which will be for the text as well as the button. So we'll just give this table a width of 100%. Then I'll add some space and we can start our first content row with table row, then table data tag. And we're going to give this style as well with padding of 15 pixels all around to add some separation between the top, the bottom, and the sides. Then we'll need to add text align center to make sure that we have our text as well as the button centered. Then we can add our heading 3 to include the promo text. So I'll add a H3, and we're going to give this a font size of 18 pixels. Then we'll remove the margin like we did with the text above the images in the 3-column section, so we don't have any additional spacing around the text. And now we can add the text. So you can type it out or use lorem text. I'm just going to paste this in all caps. And once I've done that, if we take a look at it here in Chrome, there we have the text with the 15 pixels of padding, giving us the space so we can see that background color. So let's move on to the button that appears underneath it inside a new set of table row and table data tags. And the table data tag here, we're going to give some styling to. So I'm going to give it padding of 5 pixels on top. We'll use 15 pixels left, right, and 20 pixels bottom. So we can add 15 pixels for the left at the end, or we can just use 3 values to have 15 pixels set to the left and right. Then I'm also going to add the same background color that's added above, just in case email clients want to strip the background color from this table data tag. So I'll just copy it and paste it in with the same hex value. And I'm going to drop the closing table data tag down. And I'll also include text align center, which is going to take care of centering our button. So let's add the link now for the button. We'll have the attributes href for the link, class, and style. So I'll leave the link blank, but we're going to give this a class that we'll just call button so we can reference it in the internal style sheet. Then for style, we're just going to add the color of the text here. We're going to add this when we add our internal style sheet, but I'd like to emphasize adding the color to links here in line because that's preferred with email clients with links. And the hex value for this is 534C46. So now let's take care of styling the button using that button class. So I'm going to go back up to our internal style sheet, and under H3 there we have the button class started for us. So I'll add text decoration none to get rid of the underline, then change the font size to 14 pixels to make it a little smaller. So I pasted in the text with it already being uppercase, but I'm going to include text transform uppercase in case it isn't already uppercase. Then the background color F4E DE4. So that's about the same, or we used DE3 before, that's right. We'll also add a border to give it its outline styling seen in the finished version, which is a medium brown shade. So let's give it a width of 2 pixels, and that's going to be solid, then the hex value 7F786E. We'll also need to add some padding so we can see the separation between the text and the border. So let's add 10 pixels top bottom and 30 pixels left right. We'll also need to add display inline block in order to make it a block element so we can see the padding appear both underneath and on top of the button. So if I remove that and add it back, you'll be able to see that change in the spacing. So with it as a block element now, we can adjust this padding and you'll be able to see the change underneath of it. And with buttons, we make them inline block instead of block, so we can have them positioned next to one another without adding a line break in case we want to add additional buttons. That's more of a web standard than in email, though. There's more complexity with buttons in email. So let's lay out our HTML for the footer section now with our table row and table data tags to start. So we're going to have an inner table row and table data tag, so I'll include padding 0 for this table data tag. We'll also have our table inside of it with the width of 100%. And we can create our new table row and table data tag, which is going to have some padding of 35 pixels top bottom and 20 pixels left right. So now we're ready to add our social media icons, and these are going to be added similar to how we've added images. So if we scroll up to one of the columns, it's going to be just like this with the link wrapped around the image with the width given to the image. So let's start off with that link and an image tag inside of it. And we're going to add the attributes source, alt, width, and style. Then for the image source, this is going to be the facebook.png image. You can include the alternative text for these if you want. So you can just write Facebook or Instagram. And for the width, I'll add 50 for 50 pixels. And just so we can see the change, there's the original size, so 50 pixels. And we'll need to make sure it doesn't have any border added in certain email clients with border 0. So these will all be the same aside from the image source, so we can just copy it and paste it in 3 times. Then change the images, so we'll have Instagram, then Twitter or Twitter X, and YouTube. So there we have all 4 of our social icons displaying just like the original. So let's move on to the text that appears underneath of it, and we'll stay within this same table data tag while adding some padding to our paragraphs. So let's add style, and I'll give it a padding of 3 pixels all around. Then we'll have a link inside of the paragraph for our web address, so I'll just leave the link blank. Then we'll need to add the color, just like we did for the button. I'm going to add that internally here. So you can type it out. I'm just going to paste in the address in between the A tags. So right now, we'll see that it's going to show up in the blue or purple because it's been clicked color. So I'm going to add color, the hex value 44413D. Then text decoration none to get rid of the underline. And I'm also going to separate the letters a little bit to give it some style with letter spacing 1 pixel. So with that added, let's move on to the last bit of content, which is the subscriber preferences link, or you can make it an unsubscribe link, which is required at the bottom of email newsletters, as well as the physical address. So we'll have our link with the href and style attributes. For the font size, I'm going to make it 14 pixels to make it smaller than the Kasha Decor website address. And I actually don't have the link inside of the paragraph, so I'll just have to correct that. Then for the link, I'm going to leave it blank with the hashtag. I'll type it out instead of pasting it in this time so we can make use of text transform uppercase. So subscriber preferences. Then for the link style, I'm going to use the same color we used previously with 44413D. Text decoration none to get rid of the underline. Then text transform uppercase. And that's going to make it look similar to the Kasha Decor web address, except for I'll leave the spacing the same without the additional letter spacing. And I forgot to add the border at the very bottom of the template. So what I'll do is simply include that with the opening table data tag for this footer section. So after padding 0, let's just add border bottom styling. So I'll add 10 pixels solid 7D7670, which is a slightly different shade than what we've used previously with the brown shades. So with that, that's all of our content. So let's take a look at it here with the finished version. So I'll just size it up some, and we're not going to be able to size it down enough in Google Chrome to see the single column version. So I'll just open up Developer Tools with Inspect, and now I can size it down as much as we need. So we'll just see the columns collapse, which are the tables with the column class to make up the single column mobile layout. Then we can size it back up for the full 600 pixel width layout. So now what I'd like to do is show you how you can test your email template. So you may remember at the beginning of this video, I was showing you how it appears in Gmail here on the web version and on my iPhone. So in order to send your emails, the images have to be uploaded to the web. So I've provided you the emails in local form inside of the image folder, as we saw here, but they'll need to be accessible online through a link in order for them to show up in the email box, as well as when you're testing. So I'm going to give you some resources here. So you can use the free website called IMGBB to upload your images there, which you can get a direct link for. And you'll just include the direct image link inside of your HTML in place of the IMG/image link, which was local. You can also just do a search for free image hosting services to see the different ones other than IMGBB. You can also use an email marketing provider or email service provider where you're able to send marketing emails. MailChimp is the best known for this, but most email service providers include free accounts where you can add your images and get direct links so you can include them in your HTML. So when you sign up for a free ESP account, you can add your image content and get a direct link just like IMGBB. And those of you who are more advanced, you can always use something like GitHub to upload your images and get a direct link to them from GitHub. So all three of these methods I have outlined in a full lesson inside of my HTML email mastery course. So as a reminder, remember to check out the HTML file here or the PDF promoting my course, and you can take a look at the course curriculum to see all of the different lessons that are outlined throughout. So now let me show you how to see your images inside of your email client once you have the direct links added to your HTML. So you can use an inliner like MailChimp's CSS inliner tool. Just do a Google search for it and paste in the HTML that we've laid out. Remember, for best delivery, you can always remove the HTML comments, then hit convert, and here we'll have all of our HTML with the CSS from our internal style sheet added inline in our HTML elements. So you can use this HTML with the CSS inlined in order to send an email, but the email tool that I'm going to show you will do it for you with a simple click of a button as well. So if you go to putsmail.com, you'll need to create a free account with your email address, but once you do, hit New Test, then you can add your email address you want to send your email to. You can add a subject line, then paste in all of the HTML into this section right here. If your CSS isn't already inlined, check the Move My CSS Inline box, then select You're Not a Robot and hit Send Email. So once you do that, you'll be able to see the Kasha Decor email template inside of your email inbox. So that concludes the full tutorial. Remember to like the video and subscribe along with notifications if you haven't already done so. And check out my email course. You can check out the full curriculum and watch the first 4 videos of the course on the sales page. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.